Look, I think I'm every bit of one of those gully cricketers that played on the streets of Ramakrishnapuram to who I am today. It's the same dogfight that I have in me. I wanted to do something called the mottamaadi cricket, just like you have mottamaadi music that goes around. So yeah, for me, Tamil movies were a very big part of my life, and it taught me a lot. Dhoni is everything that Chennai could ask for.
Hello and welcome to The Hindu. This is Srinivasa Ramanujam, and today we have with us one of India's finest cricketers. He's just written a book, ready to talk to him about that. Welcome. Hello, Ash.
Hello.
You've just written a book with Sidharth Monga, and I just went through it, and it's a very fascinating read that takes us back to 90s Chennai, your growing up years, and how you got into cricket. What was the seed of this particular book?
I'm a big novel enthusiast in the first place. I've read a few autobiographies, a share of those myself. One of those was Stephen Was. The other one was Ricky Ponting. I'm not going into the detail of every one of those things that I've read. But somewhere down the line, the joy of reading about a cricketer for me stemmed from the fact that he was able to take me to his household. And which came to me through Ricky Ponting when he spoke about his town in Launceston, about his childhood hero being David Boone. And when I was reading it, I was like, hey, you know what? This is how my life looked like. And I read novels ranging from, Clive Cussler to Amish Tripathi to Chetan Bhagat. My first initiation seed, a lot of people may have a lot of opinions, but Chetan Bhagat was as simple as one could get. And it was quite a nice read. I used to enjoy it to the point where I think he wrote the 3 mistakes of my life. It was centered in Gujarat. So I was one of those. When I went to play the game, I took an auto, went around Ahmedabad, I enjoyed it. And there is a very deep thinking person inside. I've got a lot of fantasies in my head as well. People can call it whatever they want to, but it's a very creative side that I've got. And I always wanted to write, write how I felt and be very organic, be very vulnerable at the same time. A lot of people want to paint themselves very perfectly. I'm not perfect. Nobody is. So I wanted it to be as it is, and I believe when my parents, my grandfather, everybody, when they used to tell me when I was young about what are the right things to do, what mistakes they did and what I shouldn't do, it always used to be a very restrictive mechanism as a child that I faced. But once I started to listen to those people's experiences and adapted it in my life, I felt I was catching up on time and I was better than who I could be. So through this book, I wanted it to be a channel where somebody, not everybody, you cannot touch everyone's life, but maybe even 5% of those, if they read, it's a huge number, I would assume. And if it touches them and if they can learn something, I would be very happy.
Is this also to motivate younger people who are going to take up the sport at some point of time?
Honestly, who am I to motivate people? The moment somebody says, here I am to motivate you, I think I lose that person. I don't, because motivation comes from the fact that it hits you, it touches you. It must be that very deep sense of connect that you have with someone. I've had so many people who walk across boardrooms, come in, talk about stories, tell me what to do, find those team games. It's never really worked. The most powerful of stories have come through your incidental connection with someone. And it happened to me with Andre Agassi's Open. I was just tripping on that book for days on end. I used to trip on, I read Ponniyin Selvan, I was fascinated. It took me an entire book, the first part, for me to see how the book could pan out. It didn't hook me on immediately, but that was also another genre. So I love novels, and I think it's very powerful, and that's why I love TV series as well, because there is no one route to success. There is no one road that leads anywhere. How it impacts me need not necessarily how it impacts you. So I like that power because it can change the lives of people, how they imagine and be creative about it.
You speak about reading a lot of novels, watching a lot of web series and all that. You also do wonderful YouTube content. We've been watching all your Kutti stories, and all the content that you put out on YouTube is something that cricket fans immediately relate to, and they lap up in that sense. Ashwin, I wanted to ask you why it is necessary, or why you think you put yourself out there rather than being elusive, which is what is generally considered among celebrities to be their calling card.
It's a very interesting question. I think the way you started the question, I thought it was going to be something else, and the way you ended it ended up somewhere else. See, 2 things I believe. Firstly, if people want to stay elusive, that's their choice. If that's something that's worked in the past, I can assure you that's not going to work going into the future. Okay, now I set that line straight because this is the generation of social media where a 15-year-old kid or a 16-year-old kid who's there on social media, and that, let's not go into the debacles of that, but they feel they can connect with you by just putting a tweet about you, tagging you, or doing it or sending you a DM on Instagram. They feel they've touched you. Okay, so for this generation, that elusivity of you being away and gazing at you, I believe it's going to come down over a period of time. And I'm so excited for that generation to hit upon this wonderful country. I don't believe in superstardom for starters. I don't believe in putting the heckle of, I don't believe in putting that burden of having to be that picture perfect person or not finding yourself. Why? I played this game because I loved it. The game has given me rich in dividends what it has given me. I'm forever in debt to the game. But who I have become through that is not what I signed up for, very frankly. And why should it stop me from going to the corner tea shop and have a cup of chai? Tomorrow if my bubble bursts and if I'm done with the game, should I seek attention? I shouldn't. And thankfully, for all these years of playing professional cricket, it has never come upon me. And that, I think, leaving aside what the game has given me, what I've achieved, who my parents are, who my kids are, who my wife is, all leaving everything aside, I think that's one of the greatest gifts I've been bestowed upon with.
This book also requires you to tap into a lot of nostalgia. We go into 12B buses, we go into the bylanes of Ramakrishnappuram in West Mambalam, which is where a lot of the first few chapters are centered on. How difficult was it, Ash? Now that you are an international cricketer, you have fame, you have recognition, people recognize you on the streets, take pictures. From this Ashwin to going back to the Ashwin who was just on the streets and wanting Gaji, if I can call it that, how difficult was tapping into that nostalgia?
I would trade anything for going back there, to be frank. Maybe what it's given me and what what has come along with it is something that I might not have, but I would any day trade for that. The joys of being in that lanes, fighting for those 2-3 runs on the offside, the ball going into the next door uncle's house, us pulling it out of the well, all these are great stories. I can't even begin to tell you how good it was. And I'm sure everybody will have such stories to tell. But the beauty of talking about all these things in that book was it took me a trip down the memory lane, and it gave me so many goosebumps moments as I was doing this with Sidharth. But the one challenge I felt was I wanted to convince the publishers and even people, Sidharth writing it, that it needn't necessarily be a book where I'm talking about the Sachins of the world, the Virats of the world. I think people who might have bought this book thinking it could be about them to right away start about it would be slightly disappointed. Okay, but I think it needn't be that and still can pull off a good story. I believe that creative side of mine has some power. And I wanted to see and put a testing, piece on that mantle. And tomorrow, somebody reading it might learn something out of it. Because everybody will, as we talk about it, India is a very young country, right? At least 30% of the population in this country would be at similar stages. And today, people don't play on the road anymore because of traffic. The hamlet crickets are down. I just feel reading through this, if somebody gets the initiative to want to be out there between 4 to 6, I think I would have really achieved what I wanted.
Wow, okay. Since you spoke gully cricket and spoke about the ball going into the neighbor's house, what about gully cricket, because you spoke about it, what about gully cricket and Ash playing gully cricket? What are some of the aspects from that you took that you think holds you in good stead even today when you play an international game?
Look, I think I'm every bit of one of those gully cricketers that played on the streets of Ramakrishnappuram to who I am today. It's the same dogfight that I have in me. It's not changed one bit. Whether I ran out Bhuvnesh at the non-striker's end or Joss Butler at the non-striker's end, it doesn't matter to me, because for me, Bhuvnesh is more precious to me than Joss Butler would ever be. But I ran him out. The fact that Bhuvnesh and I could still go to the soup shop after him getting out at the non-striker's end and have a great time and still talk about stories and movie direction at the same evening is what makes everything about gully cricket, right? You can fight. That's what good friends, that's what good brothers, that's what good. Look, I think the game was an avenue for me to compete, not necessarily, and I loved the intricacies of the game that came with it. It's like maybe a law student who's trying to go through what it is to try and get the better of his his counterpart or something like that. So for me, it was a greatest avenue to compete, and you could see so many new people also. I mean, people from the next street would come, we'd play, get bet games. Somebody to the neighborhood would have joined you, and they would come and play, and we were always okay to welcome new people into it. And the kind of characters you meet, some of them would be not interested to play. All they would want to do is just sit in the wall, talk about a lot of fun stuff, not want to be a great part of it. I remember my cousin, his name is Sham, and until he was about 13 to about 16, 17, I think the whole sum total of the balls he would have faced in gully cricket would be 100.
Okay.
But he would be there every day between 4 to 6, I mean, those are the characters and he would be around cracking jokes. And I was one of those who was actually serious there. And we would find very few serious people playing the game. But the whole, orchestration of it and the fun around it is something I would go to bed dreaming of how it was that day. So it's a fascinating narration.
I'm sure you missed that, but how do you translate all this to a new generation who are not like to your daughters, to a young person who wants something like this but cannot, obviously, because we live in apartments. How the whole dynamics have changed.
So
right?
I wanted to do something. I run a cricket academy, and obviously I didn't have the time. The executional part of it is a miss. I wanted to do something called the mottamaadi cricket, just like you have mottamaadi music that goes around, and just bring back the joy of playing cricket in the mottamaadis of small. Because I don't think playing cricket in the roads is a realistic possibility anymore. So take it to the terraces, and we used to play in the terrace then. When the street, and there was cars parked, or sometimes the street uncles were having a bad day, they wouldn't allow you to play on the road. So we'd shift to the terraces, and if you had to play in the terrace, we needed to have an adult there, and most often than not, that adult used to be my dad, or we had the neighboring uncle. I mean, 2-3 dads are always very sportive enough to participate, but not the rest. So for me, those sort of fascinations covered me. I wanted to bring it back through that. I would think that is something that I would seriously be interested in as I get to the twilight years of my playing career.
As part of giving back to the sport, you should probably come up with something like this.
Probably somewhere a psychotic child inside me is also telling me that I would love to play there as well. So that's probably the selfish motive in that.
Right. As you speak about 12B in your book, you reference a lot of Tamil films. I think last you did Thillamulla. You speak about a lot of films. You write about films in your diary, in the book as well. How big a Tamil fan is Ashwin, and what does he look for in films generally when he watches them?
I shouldn't make the mistake of sounding extremely passionate about just this one language. I believe there is a beauty to language in whichever language people are used to speaking and wherever they've grown up. I speak decent Hindi. I've learned most of my childhood I've learned languages like Sanskrit, Hindi and French. But there is some innate beauty about Tamil in itself, and I do not know how to explain that. It's a seriously expressive language. Maybe I'm not as fluent in some of the other languages, that's why I feel like that. But the tongue-in-cheek humor, the sarcasm, the way movies are not just a significance of entertainment for me. I've learnt most of my life through movies, not necessarily the heroism. Like I said, I'm bestowed upon with the gift of being able to isolate what I can do. If I watch the movie of Gilly, I'm just giving you an example, I would like to, resonate and understand more the friendship that circles around actor Vijay, rather than me going to Madurai and bringing a girl and doing those fights. I am very clear, that is not my genre. This is my genre, and I enjoy that part of it. And how the relationship between the parents are, and how funny they are, and how that could also be another household. Because most households that I have seen, do not have that sort of colloquial fun happening in their households, and I'd love to see that between children and their parents also. I resonate with that, and I was given that freedom to be able to be that person with my dad. He wouldn't mistake me at all. We had an unbelievably good relationship. If in our house it was flipped, my dad was my mom and my mom was my dad. So that relationship was such. So yeah, for me, Tamil movies were a very big part of my life, and it taught me a lot.
Is there one movie that changed your life, Ashwin?
I would think it's Three Idiots, and for some, I was so excited when Three Idiots came out, and the movie was going to be remade in Tamil by Vijay. I was a very big, I continue to be a huge fan of Vijay, and I somehow like, because he's got too many abilities, right? He can dance, he can act, he can, he's got the sense of timing when it comes to comedy, which is a big hit, big tick for me. And Three Idiots, I think, completely gave me that stamp to say that I am probably on the right path. I saw that movie at the right stage of my life. Very often, right? If you go through that book, you would see that there are self doubts creeping into me very often, and that's just the way life is. And you will be casted upon in the net of self doubts, not just by the society, by your own head, because of what the society imprints on you, just plants it on you. Then your own journey. Being a cricketer could be a team sport, but it's a lonely journey. You getting out and finding a way to solve that problem is a ridiculously lonely journey. In that journey, you cast your own self doubts, your journey, your road. Everything could be looming large in front of you. So for me, that movie and the path I was taking and how people had views on the path I was taking could have, gone here and there. But the way Amir Khan stamped upon his role in that movie and, inflicted that impact on me was very, very high. And I would always recommend people to watch that movie once before they even start parenting.
Because you spoke parenting and you spoke about your dad being a great dad and all that. How is Ashwin the parent?
I think Ashwin the parent is a joke in front of his dad. I can never be who my dad was for me. That's not a possibility at all, because my dad was single-minded with respect to his child. You could see how single-minded he was from the fact that he could relinquish whatever he wanted over what I needed in his head. I didn't know what I needed. I was too young for it. But he was single-minded with respect to that. I can never be that. What I actually do, on the contrary, is whatever aspects I didn't like of my dad parenting me is something that I avoid when it comes to my kids. I don't like that. He studied with me. He used to sit with me. The 24 hours was too long for a child of my age at that particular time. So I ensure that I don't put undue pressure on my children. I'm sure the society is going to do that. The schooling system, the education system is going to do that to them. I don't want to be an added burden because I think education system and education as the time rolls on is not just going to be bookish or not going to be marks. I think it's going to be the ability for the next generation kids to survive and to also, find ways and means to adapt to what the societal requirements are going to be. So I think you need to keep them like an open book where they can just keep flying and, stamping their own mark on that.
Completely. So what next for Ashwin? Because we see your YouTube videos, you've just written a book, and I hope there's a part 2 coming up. I think you're going to the TNPL Red next. So how's the road ahead looking for Ashwin, and how does he plan on giving back to the sport?
I stopped planning 5 years ago in terms of where I want to be, what I could be, and all that, because I think I don't know, it's too spiritual to call it karma or fate or whatever. But I think as you see it pan out and live the day and live to its fullest. And for me, the problem and advantage is I'm very, very addicted to being disciplined in whatever I do, and my work ethics to whatever it could be. I never even imagined, if you had told me like 10 years ago that I would start a YouTube channel and it will be a good one and I would be dedicated to it, spending time on it, I would have just laughed at you. It just happened. And when something happens to you, the magic is when you know it is happening and unfolding in front of you, it's important you embrace it. And I embraced it completely, and I'm very dedicated to it because I found that it is an avenue for my creativity. Not sometimes, most of the times, 99 out of 100 people who end up doing a profession are not doing the profession that they entirely are happy with, right? And for me, playing cricket is an unbelievably great dream that came true. But is that the profession that completely embraces whatever I want? Maybe not, because the game in itself, the community of that game is not suited for my mindset. For me, that avenue to open to my creativity was very necessary. And can I do that in my community? Definitely not. So I think God has been very kind there to find me. The greatest line is, when the student is ready, the guru arrives.
Yeah.
I think when you're ready to embrace, things happen to you, it unfolds. So I'm very grateful for that.
I want to end up with a question on Chennai, because your book takes me back to the olden days of Chennai and
Madras.
Madras. today's Chennai has lapped up the Dhoni phenomenon, right? In that sense, CSK and Dhoni are an integral part of everyday conversations, culture, and things like that. As a Chennaiite and as a cricket fan, Ashwin, can you decode the Dhoni phenomenon for us?
People embrace success with superstardom in this part of the world like no other. And I think it was always up for grabs. And for the sheer person that he is, right? We like it. We like it. We don't like people who are in your face and say things directly. We don't like that. And Dhoni is everything that Chennai could ask for. He's just this calm guy, doesn't talk, has a very one-line witty humor, gives you those lines occasionally. And I think people were ready. They had their arms open. Dhoni just came and fell in their arms.
Lovely. All the best for the book, Ashwin. All the best. I hope the book is a great success, and I also hope that you get to do the mottamaadi cricket at some point of time. Our cricket team would love to be part of it.
Thank you. Thank you.